All right, my pleasure revolutionaries. Welcome back to Desire Dialogues. So, this is Sex Ed for Adults, Part 4, rewriting myths and rewriting your pleasure narrative, right? So, we've talked pleasure techniques, full body arousal, some advanced orgasm skills, but today we're going to bust some myths, breaking through that outdated bullshit that has held people back from embracing their sexuality. Because let's be real, most of us were fed some absolute nonsense about sex. So whether that came from media, religion, your upbringing, school, or just straight up bad advice, right? That's the thing, I get it. And those old beliefs, they can actually block your pleasure potential. So today we're going to dismantle some myths, rewrite a new pleasure positive, shame-free, fully empowered sex narrative. Buckle up, buttercup, because it's time to set the record straight. And I don't mean heteronormatively. All right, so myth number 1, sex should be spontaneous, and other Hollywood lies, right? You get that myth like, if we really loved each other, we'd always be in the mood at the same time. You know, good sex just happens. It shouldn't require effort. That is not the reality, my friends. Life is not a damn rom-com. Most people experience responsive desire. That means that arousal actually builds after stimulation starts. And stimulation is going to be different from others. Depends on what tickles your fancy, right? What do you respond to? Then we have planned sex equals hot sex, because anticipation builds excitement. Okay, that's the reality there. Scheduling intimacy is not unsexy. It's actually really intentional, right? Even if it's not, scheduling sex, you're scheduling time to be together. So the little pleasure reframe for you here is, instead of waiting for the mood to strike, you can start creating the mood. It could be simply prioritizing pleasure like you would on a date night, right? Teasing, flirtation. So, myth number 2. Orgasm should always happen during penetration. The myth that if I don't orgasm, something's wrong. Sex isn't real sex until there's penetration. Meh. I know that's a terrible noise. Sorry, I won't do that again. The reality, my friends, only about 15% of people with vulvas actually orgasm from penetration alone. The rest actually need external clitoral stimulation, about 80% of clitoris owners, right? So the clitoris is not just a tiny nub, it is an internal structure with 10,000 nerve endings, and it wraps around the vaginal canal and above it. So penetration alone doesn't really stimulate it enough, all right? So orgasms equal pleasure, not just penetration, okay? Oral sex, manual, toys, it all counts. So a little pleasure reframe. If penetration isn't leading to orgasm, you're not broken. You're going to just need a little additional stimulation, right? And penetrative sex isn't the main event. The pleasure is. All right, myth number 3, my friends. Men always want sex, and if they don't, something's wrong. Erections are going to equal arousal 100% of the time. Reality, men's desire isn't always spontaneous. They also experience mental blocks, stress, and some body issues, right? Body image. And erections aren't a simple, on-off switch, okay? Relationship dynamics, health, anxiety, medication can often affect it. Soft sex is a thing, and it can be incredibly intimate and pleasurable. The pleasure reframe for you is, instead of expecting, automatic erection equals desire, I would rather you, focus on full body arousal, and just removing that pressure from performance that we all often feel, right, regardless of gender. All right, myth number 4. Lube means you're not turned on. The myth is, if I need lube, my body must not be working right. Or lube is only for older people or people with issues. And here's the thing, my friend, reality check. Arousal fluid production is going to vary from person to person. And it varies because of hormones, hydration, like did you drink enough water, right? Stress. The current cycle, the phase of the menstrual cycle, can all affect it, as well as medication. Lube makes everything better. Full stop, period. All right? It reduces friction, it prevents micro tears, and increases pleasure. Pro tip. A hybrid lube, which is water and silicone, lasts longer and works great for shower sex. And the pleasure reframe, my friend, is using lube is not a sign of dysfunction. It's a sign of expert level pleasure knowledge because it really enhances the experience. All right. Myth number 5. Kinks and fantasies are weird. The myth, if I have certain fantasies, if I want this, if I want that, something must be wrong with me. I got some trauma, shit like that, right? Another one is like kinky people are just extremely damaged, right? Or very, a different level. Here's the reality, though, my friends. Fantasies don't always mean you want something in real life. It's something that can just be a mental turn on, mental stimulation. And kinks are incredibly common, right? Power play, role play, BDSM, they all have psychological and pleasure-based benefits. Also, exploring fantasies can deepen intimacy, creates excitement and novelty in long-term relationships. So, the pleasure reframe here that fantasies are a natural part of sexuality, and it's whether you act on them or not. And your desires do not need to be normal to be valid. All right, I got a couple of questions, all right? So here, let's answer these for you. All right, first one we have is, can too much masturbation ruin partnered sex? Actually, no. The key is variety, right? So when we switch up techniques, we engage in different types of pleasure. And I think that's great. I get another one. This one is a big one. Is porn addiction real? When you have this like compulsive porn use, it can impact a relationship. And the concept of addiction and what constitutes it is often debated, right? The issue is often more about unrealistic expectations or escapism rather than the porn itself. Let's see. How do I overcome guilt around self-pleasure? I want you to recognize that pleasure is natural, it's healthy, and if shame is deeply ingrained, try journaling about where you got that, right? Who handed that to you? Where those beliefs came from? And masturbation and self-pleasure is the highest form of self-love that you can give to yourself, my friends. All right, your pleasure homework. All right, my myth-busting babes. Today we unlearned some serious nonsense. Your work does not stop here, okay? Grab a notebook, okay? And pause. I'll be right here when you get back. Your homework this week is, first off, number 1, challenge one belief about sex that you've been carrying. Is it really true? Or was it just passed down to you? Was it heard from someone else that you just adopted as fact, right? Number 2, introduce a new pleasure tool or technique into your routine. So whether that's a new type of stimulation, lube, breath work, or talking about a fantasy with a sexual partner, yeah, let's get it. Number 3, have an open conversation about one of these myths with a partner or friend. Because when we break the cycle of bad sex ed, you know what I mean? Like, that's got to start with somebody, right? It can start with me. It can start with you. And if this helped you, unlearn something today on this episode, share it with a friend. If you're ready to go deeper into your pleasure journey, and I always mean that both ways, check out all my coaching offerings in the bottom. And until then, stay curious and remember, your pleasure, your rules.